How many times have you guys found yourself out and about and you don't have any food on you, and it seems like the only option is go get a hamburger or a sandwich or some crap that you know you don't want to eat and you know is no good for you? I'm going to show you how, no matter where you are, as long as there is a grocery store nearby, pretty much usually any grocery store, you can go in and you can put together a decent meal on the run. It won't break the bank and it will fit your dietary needs. So come in, I'm going to show you how it's done.
Brian, please call Peter.
Now, I know I'm not the only one who's found himself on the road before without any food. And you know how it is out there. You start looking around at what your options are, and it's like, all right, I could go to Subway, I could get a hamburger, I could get a deli meat sandwich, and most of the time none of those are really acceptable options for most of us who are serious about attaining our physique-related goals. It's tough. It really is tough to find good food when you are out and about. So, some of you may know this, some of you might not, but I was prior to, making a transition to becoming a full-time professional bodybuilder, I worked as a title searcher, which, I won't even go into what a title searcher does, but needless to say, I spent a lot of time on the road. And there were plenty of times where I didn't bring either enough. Back then I wasn't totally serious about bodybuilding the way I am now. But there was a lot of times where I found myself saying, oh man, what am I going to get, for lunch? Or I need a meal, what am I going to have? And I learned real quick that the options are limited. The best option that I found, the one thing that I realized was if you have a grocery store, which every town does, no matter where you are, there's usually at least one grocery store nearby. I learned that you could put together a pretty good meal on the run and for a decent price. So I wanted to show you guys today, I want to give you guys 3 solid options that you should be able to pull together pretty much no matter where you are, what grocery store you're at. And these are 3 options that are pretty sufficient when it comes from a macronutrient perspective. Everything that I figured, each meal, like I said, I give you 3 options. Each one will allow you at least 50 grams of protein, at least 50 grams of carbs, and around 20 grams of fat. And that's a pretty, for most, bodybuilders, that's a pretty solid meal. If you were a female, you could feasibly just cut it in half. First option, cottage cheese. Every grocery store has cottage cheese. Loaded with protein, economical, and easy to pair with other things. Now, I figured a container of cottage cheese, which gives you around 60 grams of protein. Depending on whether you go with a low-fat version or a full-fat version, it could be anywhere from 4 grams of fat per container to 20 grams of fat per container. So you could adjust, what you add to it accordingly. That being said, if you decide to go with a low-fat option, it's very easy to pair it with, say, a serving of almonds. Now, what I did was, you'll notice a couple things here. Granola, almonds, rice cakes. These three things, granted, these contain more than one serving, but they don't go bad. It was easy. If you had some left over, you keep it in your car, you bring it home with you, it doesn't go bad. If you're on the road, you're traveling, bring it to your hotel room, you've got more for later. So like I said, we got cottage cheese. If you went with a low-fat version, you could easily add a serving of almonds. Boom, now you got 16 grams of high-quality fat paired with the 4 grams you're probably already getting from the low-fat cottage cheese. You got 20 grams of fat. And carbohydrate-wise, you could always go with a couple bananas, which would allow you probably around 60 grams of carbs. If you don't want the sugars, if that's something you're worried about, you could easily go with a granola. You know, on a per serving basis, under $1, you know, per serving. Second option, oh, and for each meal, I figured in a bottle of water. Now, just so you know, for this video, we went to Whole Foods. And you know, I know Whole Foods gets a bad rap for being expensive or unreasonable. And I find in some instances, like if you were going to go in there and you want to buy filet mignon, it's $30 a pound. Yeah, that's a bank breaker. But for a lot of things, they actually are very reasonable. And I will tell you that I was able to purchase all this stuff, put together, like I said, 3 meals. Each of them, with the bottle of water included, is under $10. Now, if you were to go, you know, to a burger joint, by the time you buy a couple burgers, whatever, you're going to spend $10 at least. And it's not going to be what you want, most likely, unless you're out for a cheap meal. But yeah, it's not a, from a financial standpoint, it's not unreasonable. Second meal option, tuna fish. Good old tuna fish, standby. May or may not be your first pick, but it's definitely a quality option. I opted for one that was packed in olive oil. Reason being that allowed me to get the protein and fats in one product. And this one happens to be packed in extra virgin olive oil, so not a bad deal. At $2.50 a can, pretty damn good. I like to have a vegetable or some type of roughage with an animal protein because it just goes down easier. And I think celery, not only because it's cheap, but it tastes good and has a high water content. So when you're eating something that's dry, like tuna, it really helps it go down a lot easier. And for a carb source, whole grain bagel. Now, I know bread gets a bad rap. Personally, I wouldn't eat it at every meal, but you know, a meal a day or a meal, you know, here and there when I'm on the run, I'm not afraid of it. And at $1 a serving for 50 grams of carbs, you know, and I'm sure being a whole grain bagel, there's a decent amount of fiber in there. I don't think it's a bad bet. And it happens to go pretty well, you know, with the tuna, the celery. Again, solid meal, over 50 grams of protein, 50 grams of carbs, and with the olive oil in here, you get a solid 20 grams of fat from a good source. Last option, you know, pretty much every grocery store you go to now, most, all have rotisserie chickens ready to go. If you don't want the whole one, I opted for one that's a half. You know, it's going to give you thigh meat and breast meat. Between the two, I mean, if you were to eat the whole thing, skin and all, I mean, protein-wise is easy 50, 60 grams of protein. If you're not afraid of the saturated fat, eat the skin and everything. If not, peel the skin, throw some almonds in with it. Some diced up peppers. You know, I mean, in a lot of grocery stores you could find stuff like this, whether it's peppers, carrots, celery, some type of veggies to go with your meal. I recommend it. And then rice cakes. This brand in particular, very good brand. This flavor is awesome, honey nut. You could do 3 rice cakes. That'll give you about 50 grams of carbs, under $1 for the serving. Tastes great. You know, essentially you're getting chicken, rice, veggies. And if you were to remove the skin, you know, have almonds. I mean, really, it's at its foundation, it's a good meal. And like I said, all 3 of these options, with the bottle of water included, under $10. I think the most expensive one was the chicken, came in around $9, with the cheapest one being the cottage cheese at like $6.50 or $7. You know, I don't know what else feasibly you're really going to find when you're on the run, pretty much no matter where you are, that you could get something like that that really fits the diet. So I would encourage you guys, when you're stuck, when you're on the run, pop in a grocery store. You can most likely pull something together. So don't feel like your only option is McDonald's.